In the twilight of the 7th century BC, while the Iron Age approached its conclusion in the ancient Near East, the formidable Neo-Assyrian Empire ultimately succumbed to conquest and was overtaken by the Babylonians, led by the ambitious monarch Nabopolassar. Although Nabopolassar established the Neo-Babylonian Empire, it was his heir, Nebuchadnezzar II, who truly elevated the dominance of Babylon, reviving Babylon's former majesty. Not since the era of Hammurabi, nearly a millennium prior, had Babylon asserted such command over Mesopotamia. Owing to his portrayal in scripture, Nebuchadnezzar came to be seen as a tyrannical and ruthless adversary of the Jewish nation. Nebuchadnezzar II, the oldest son of King Nabopolassar, was born in 642 BC and likely named after his grandfather, a regional authority in the city of Uruk under King Ashurbanipal. The name Nebuchadnezzar stems from his Akkadian appellation, Nabu Kadori Usur, which means, Nabu protects my eldest son, with Nabu being the Babylonian deity associated with writing, intellect, and education, gaining prominence during the first millennium BC due to his link with the chief god Marduk. As Babylon's crown prince, Nebuchadnezzar played an instrumental role in his father's military ventures, notably in the siege of Haran in 609 BC, where the last Assyrian monarch, Ashur-uballit II, had regrouped his remaining forces. The clash at Haran sealed the Neo-Assyrian Empire's downfall. Following this victory, Nebuchadnezzar rose through the ranks, eventually commanding troops with his father. Together, they ventured into the northern highlands of Assyria in 607 BC. When Nabopolassar returned to the capital, Nebuchadnezzar continued autonomous campaigns, leading forces independently and achieving significant victories that firmly established Babylon's supremacy. During this time, Pharaoh Necho II of Egypt sought to reinstate the former Assyrian dominance by dispatching a massive force into ex-Assyrian lands, setting up a stronghold in Carchemish. Nebuchadnezzar engaged Necho's army in 605 BC at the Battle of Carchemish, delivering a crushing defeat that resounded across generations, referenced in texts like Jeremiah and Kings within the Hebrew Bible. After Nabopolassar's death in July 605 BC, Nebuchadnezzar swiftly journeyed back to Babylon to assert his claim to the throne before his sibling, Nabu-shum-lishir, could seize it. Nabu-shum-lishir vanished from all records thereafter, prompting scholars to surmise he may have led a failed uprising and perished. In his coronation address, Nebuchadnezzar appealed directly to Marduk, Babylon's divine protector. "O compassionate Marduk, may this dwelling I've raised stand eternally. Grant me longevity within its splendor, with many heirs, and let me gather the tributes of kings across all lands." After honoring his father's memory, Nebuchadnezzar resumed command in Syria to further his imperial reach. In 604 BC, he stormed Ashkelon in the Levant, deposed its monarch, looted its wealth, and razed the city. Over the next few years, states like Judah acknowledged Babylon's dominance. With the support of Greek mercenaries, the empire extended deep into Palestinian territories. However, Babylon's expansion was disrupted in 601 BC when Nebuchadnezzar launched an offensive against Egypt. Despite his earlier victory at Carchemish, this campaign ended in utter failure, with heavy losses on both sides. The disastrous result undermined Babylon's reputation, with subordinate regions calling the empire a paper tiger. At home, disobedience and insubordination surged, sparking unrest and dissent. Shifting his focus back to the Levant, Nebuchadnezzar led his forces through the Syrian wilderness in 599 BC, pillaging nomadic Arab settlements en route. By 598 BC, the Babylonians laid siege to Jerusalem as part of their operations against Judah. Counting on Egyptian aid, Judah's king Jehoiakim rebelled against Babylonian rule but paid dearly. He perished during the siege, and his uncle Zedekiah was appointed by Nebuchadnezzar as Judah's puppet king. Additional campaigns followed, including the subjugation of the Phoenician stronghold of Tyre, as Babylonian forces left widespread destruction in their path. Nebuchadnezzar tightened control over Mesopotamia's trade routes, extending his empire in all directions. The militant sovereign firmly believed in his divine mandate to achieve universal kingship, bestowed by Marduk. After the failed invasion of Egypt, Zedekiah of Judah ceased paying tribute, sparking a rebellion in 589 BC. This culminated in Nebuchadnezzar's most notorious act, the complete obliteration of Jerusalem and Solomon's temple, an event that signified Judah's absolute downfall. Roughly 20,000 residents, about a quarter of Jerusalem's populace, were deported to Babylon, a strategy often employed by the Assyrians to prevent future revolts. The demolition of Solomon's temple and subsequent exile were perceived as the realization of prophetic warnings. These developments solidified Jewish theological doctrines, marking the shift from Yahwism, which embraced a pantheon led by Yahweh and his consort Asherah, to the strict monotheism of Judaism. In Yahwism, secondary deities such as Baal, Molech, and Ishtar had their own temples and prophets. The Hebrew Bible would later describe Nebuchadnezzar as a divine instrument of wrath, a deranged king and scourge of nations used by God to punish Israel's sins. The English artist William Blake famously depicted Nebuchadnezzar as a lunatic monarch, inspired by the Book of Daniel, which portrayed him as cast out from men, grazing like cattle, soaked by the heavens until his hair grew like eagle's feathers and his nails like birds' claws. Contrastingly, Babylonian texts portrayed Nebuchadnezzar's rule as a flourishing era that elevated Babylon to unprecedented heights. His achievements included fortifying city defenses, building moats, paving ceremonial roads with limestone, and restoring sacred temples. The Grand Ishtar Gate, leading into Babylon, was ordered by the king to be covered in glazed blue bricks and decorated with animal reliefs symbolizing gods. Proud of this monumental gate, Nebuchadnezzar inscribed a dedication in cuneiform: Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babylon, the faithful steward of Marduk's wool, beloved of Nabu, wise and reverent, devoted to divine wisdom and guardian of Babylon's prosperity, laid the gate's foundations to the water table and adorned it with majestic blue stone. Its chambers gleamed with images of lions, bulls, and dragons for all mankind to witness in awe. In Babylonian symbolism, lions stood for Ishtar, goddess of love and fertility, bulls for Adad, the storm deity, and dragons for Marduk, the chief god. Behind the massive bronze portals of the city lay lavish idols and a luxurious temple complex. The most fabled construction linked to Nebuchadnezzar is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, hailed as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Legend claims that he built these verdant terraces to comfort his queen, Amidis of Media, who longed for her lush mountain homeland. The gardens reportedly featured ascending terraces supported by stone columns and waterproofed by baked brick and asphalt. Diodorus Siculus, a Greek historian, described them as 400 feet in length and width, and 80 feet high. Due to their elevation, it's thought that water was delivered to the upper levels via a rudimentary hydraulic system. The garden's precise location remains debated, with some doubting they were ever in Babylon, or existed at all. After a 43-year reign, Nebuchadnezzar passed away in Babylon on October 7, 562 BC. His successor, Amel-Marduk, was dethroned and slain within 2 years. The Neo-Babylonian Empire endured only 2 more decades before falling to Cyrus the Great, who folded it into the vast Achaemenid Empire. Nebuchadnezzar was the longest-serving king of the Neo-Babylonian dynasty and, at his death, arguably the most influential monarch on earth. Through military dominance and architectural brilliance, he immortalized himself as one of antiquity's most formidable sovereigns. Thanks for watching.